Marrying him might have saved my life, but living with him almost destroyed it. Those haunting words echoed in my mind as I stared at the ornate mirror, the golden frame, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within me. It had all started with a chance encounter at a charity gala, where Alex Preston's charming smile and captivating presence had swept me off my feet. A whirlwind courtship followed, filled with lavish dates, heartfelt promises, and the assurance that he was the man of my dreams. Little did I know that underneath that polished exterior lurked a web of deceit so tangled that it would almost suffocate me. "Eliza, darling, are you ready?" Alex's voice drifted through the bedroom door, snapping me back to reality. "Just a minute," I called out, forcing a smile onto my face as I smoothed the silky fabric of my dress. As I stepped out, Alex's eyes raked over me appreciatively. "You look stunning, my love." He leaned in, planting a kiss on my cheek, his familiar cologne enveloping me. The ride to the Preston family estate was filled with idle chatter, but my mind wandered to the events that had brought me here. Barely 6 months ago, I had been a carefree, independent woman, content with my career and social circle. Then Alex swept in, spinning tales of undying love and a future filled with happiness. Little did I know that by accepting his proposal, I was stepping into a gilded cage. The estate loomed before us, its imposing architecture a testament to the family's wealth and prestige. As we entered, a figure emerged from the shadows, her sharp gaze immediately fixing on me. "Vivian, I'd like you to meet my wife, Eliza," Alex said, his voice tinged with pride. Vivian, Alex's older sister, offered a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Welcome to the family, Eliza." In that moment, I sensed an undercurrent of tension, a subtle warning that all was not as it seemed within the walls of this grand estate. As the evening progressed, surrounded by Alex's closest friends and business associates, I found myself drowning in a sea of polite conversations and forced smiles. Vivian's calculating glances only added to my growing unease. It wasn't until later, when the guests had dispersed and Alex had retired for the night, that I allowed myself to confront the nagging doubts that had taken root. Seated in the dimly lit library, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had entered a world far more complex and dangerous than I could have ever imagined. The question was, would I have the strength to untangle myself from this web before it consumed me completely? The grand foyer of the Preston estate should have filled me with awe, but instead, a sense of unease crept over me as I stepped inside my new home. The opulent chandeliers cast a warm glow, yet the atmosphere felt chilly and unwelcoming. "Let me show you around," Alex said, his hand resting possessively on the small of my back as he guided me through the winding corridors. Each room was more extravagant than the last, from the sprawling living area adorned with priceless antiques to the state-of-the-art kitchen that could have belonged in a 5-star restaurant. It was a world of wealth and privilege I had never experienced before. "And this will be our bedroom," Alex announced, pushing open a set of double doors to reveal a lavish suite that could have easily accommodated a small palace. As I took in the plush furnishings and the breathtaking view from the floor-to-ceiling windows, a movement in the corner of my eye caught my attention. Vivian stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, her gaze piercing. "Impressive, isn't it?" she remarked, her tone laced with sarcasm. "I hope you'll be comfortable here, Eliza." Before I could respond, Alex stepped forward, his demeanor shifting from doting husband to protective brother. "Vivian, I thought we discussed this. Eliza is my wife now, and she deserves to be treated with respect." Vivian's eyes narrowed, and for a moment I could have sworn I saw a flicker of contempt cross her features. "Of course, dear brother, I wouldn't dream of making your precious wife feel unwelcome." With a curt nod, she turned on her heel and disappeared down the hallway, leaving an uncomfortable silence in her wake. "Don't mind her," Alex murmured, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Vivian has always been a little difficult." His touch, once comforting, now felt suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was far more to this sibling rivalry than met the eye. Over the next few weeks, I found myself walking on eggshells, constantly navigating the minefield of tensions that permeated the estate. Vivian's presence was like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over every interaction, her cutting remarks and icy glares leaving me feeling unsettled and unwelcome in my own home. "You shouldn't let her get to you," Alex would say, his reassuring words ringing hollow in the face of Vivian's open hostility. But it wasn't just Vivian's behavior that set my nerves on edge. There were subtle shifts in Alex's demeanor, too. The way he would dismiss my concerns with a wave of his hand, or the way his touch would linger a little too long, as if he were trying to assert his dominance. It was during one of these moments, as he gripped my arm a little too tightly while chastising me for some perceived misstep, that I caught a glimpse of something in his eyes, a flicker of cruelty that sent shivers down my spine. In that instant, I realized that the man I had married was not the charming, loving soul he had pretended to be. There was a darkness lurking beneath the surface, and I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about him. As I lay awake that night, Alex's even breathing beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had somehow become trapped in a gilded cage with no idea how to escape. The sound of raised voices echoed through the study, shattering the usual tranquility of the estate. Curiosity got the better of me as I crept closer, the muffled words becoming clearer. "Can't keep sweeping this under the rug, Alex. The shareholders are getting restless." It was Vivian's voice, sharp and accusatory. My heart raced as I pressed my ear against the door, straining to make out Alex's response. "I have it under control," he snapped, his tone laced with irritation. "The last thing we need is for word to get out about our creative accounting practices." Creative accounting practices? My mind whirled as the implications of those words sank in. Could Alex be involved in something illegal? Before I could ponder further, the sound of footsteps approaching sent me scurrying away from the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I busied myself with straightening the vase on the hallway table, trying to appear nonchalant as Vivian emerged from the study, her face flushed with anger. "Eliza," she said curtly, her gaze sweeping over me with undisguised disdain. "I didn't realize you were lurking about." "I wasn't," I stammered, my palms growing clammy. "I was just passing by." Vivian's eyes narrowed, and for a moment I thought she might call out my lie. But then her expression softened ever so slightly, and she leaned in closer. "You should be careful, Eliza," she murmured, her voice low and laced with warning. "There are things happening in this family that you know nothing about." Before I could respond, she had swept past me, leaving me reeling in her wake. What did she mean by that? Was she implying that Alex was involved in something illegal, something that could put our entire family at risk? The questions swirled in my mind, but I knew better than to confront Alex directly. Instead, I bided my time, keeping my eyes and ears open for any clue that might shed light on the shadows that seemed to be closing in around us. It wasn't long before I stumbled upon my first piece of evidence. Late one night, as Alex worked at his desk in the study, I slipped in under the guise of bringing him a nightcap. As I placed the glass on the desk, a folder caught my eye, a collection of financial statements and ledgers, their pages littered with suspicious-looking entries and crossed-out figures. My heart pounded as I glimpsed the words Shell Corporation and Offshore Accounts scrawled in the margins. I knew then that my suspicions were well-founded. Alex was involved in something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. As the weeks passed, I became a silent observer, gathering what information I could while maintaining a careful facade of ignorance. Whispered conversations, coded emails, and furtive glances all added to the mounting pile of evidence that pointed to one inescapable truth. My husband was a liar and a cheat, and the very foundation of our marriage was built on deceit. Yet even as the walls closed in around us, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope that perhaps I could find a way to untangle this tangled web before it consumed us both. The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast eerie shadows across the room as I pored over the documents scattered on the desk. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages, each one revealing a new layer of Alex's deception. Financial statements riddled with discrepancies, emails detailing shady business dealings, and a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. The evidence was damning, and yet a part of me still clung to the hope that there was some innocent explanation, some misunderstanding that could justify the chaos unfolding before my eyes. It was then that the ping of an incoming message shattered the silence, the sound making me jump. Alex's phone vibrated on the nightstand, the screen illuminating with a new notification. Against my better judgment, I reached for it, my heart pounding in my chest. The message was innocuous at first glance. A simple, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow" from a contact labeled Jessica. But as I scrolled further, my breath caught in my throat. Message after message, each one more explicit than the last, painted a clear picture of Alex's infidelity. "Missing your touch. Counting down the hours until I can hold you again. You know how much I crave you." The words blurred together as hot tears stung my eyes. The man I had trusted, the man I had loved with every fiber of my being, had been deceiving me from the start. His promises of devotion were nothing but hollow lies, his vows of fidelity cast aside with callous disregard. The sound of footsteps in the hallway jolted me back to reality, and I scrambled to gather the scattered documents, my hands shaking uncontrollably. In my haste, I knocked over a picture frame, the shattering glass echoing like a gunshot in the stillness of the night. The bedroom door flew open, and there stood Alex, his face contorted in a mixture of anger and fear. "What the hell are you doing?" he snarled, his eyes landing on the incriminating papers clutched in my trembling hands. My voice faltered as I struggled to form a coherent response, the weight of his betrayal crushing me from all sides. Alex's gaze hardened, and he advanced towards me, his movements slow and deliberate, like a predator closing in on its prey. "You weren't supposed to see those," he hissed, snatching the documents from my grasp. "Alex, please?" I pleaded, my heart pounding in my chest. "Just tell me the truth." For a moment, his expression softened, and I dared to hope that he might offer an explanation, a chance to salvage the shattered remnants of our relationship. But then his lips twisted into a cruel smile, and the illusion was shattered. "The truth?" he sneered, leaning in close enough for me to smell the whiskey on his breath. "The truth is, you're nothing but a means to an end, Eliza, a pretty little trophy wife to help me maintain appearances while I take care of business." His words cut deep, each one a razor-sharp blade slicing through the fragile threads that had bound us together. In that moment, I knew there was no turning back, no chance for reconciliation. The man I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a monster driven by greed and deceit. "If you breathe a word of this to anyone," Alex continued, his grip tightening around my wrist until I winced in pain, "I'll make sure you regret the day you ever crossed me." As he stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him, I sank to the floor, my body racked with sobs. The world as I knew it had come crashing down around me, leaving me adrift in a sea of lies and broken promises. But even as despair threatened to consume me, a flicker of determination ignited deep within. I would not be a victim, not anymore. It was time to take back control, no matter the cost. The heavy oak door creaked open, and Vivian slipped into the dimly lit library, her eyes scanning the room before settling on me. "Eliza, what's going on?" "Your message sounded urgent." I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve. "I know everything, Vivian, about Alex's illegal activities, his offshore accounts, his mistress." Vivian's expression hardened, and for a moment I thought she might deny it all. But then her shoulders sagged, and she sank into the nearest armchair, defeat etched across her features. "So, he finally showed his true colors," she muttered, her voice laced with bitterness. "I tried to warn you, Eliza, but you were too blinded by his charm to see the monster he really is." "You knew?" I felt a surge of anger rising within me. "You knew what he was up to, and you didn't say anything?" Vivian's gaze met mine, her eyes filled with a mixture of remorse and determination. I had my suspicions, but I could never get my hands on any solid proof. That snake always covered his tracks too well. "Well, now we have the proof," I said, sliding the stack of incriminating documents across the table towards her. "And we're going to use it to bring him down." Vivian's perfectly manicured brows arched in surprise. "We? You want to take over the company, don't you?" I pressed on, my voice gaining strength with each word. "Well, this is our chance. Together, we can expose Alex's misdeeds and get him out of the way for good." A slow smile spread across Vivian's face, and for the first time I saw a glimmer of respect in her eyes. "I have to admit, I underestimated you, Eliza. You've got more fire in you than I gave you credit for." She leaned forward, her gaze intense. "All right, let's do this, but we have to be smart about it. Alex is a snake, and he'll stop at nothing to protect his precious empire. Over the next few days, Vivian and I pored over the evidence, meticulously cataloging every shred of proof, every damning email and suspicious transaction. It was a delicate dance, carefully planning our next moves while maintaining a facade of normalcy around Alex. The tension in the house was palpable, with Alex constantly on edge, his eyes narrowed in suspicion whenever Vivian and I were in the same room. But we played our parts well, acting the dutiful wife and the supportive sister, all the while plotting his downfall. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Vivian asked one night as we finalized our strategy. "Once we set this in motion, there's no going back." I thought of Alex's cruel words, the way he had threatened and belittled me, and a steely resolve settled over me. "I'm ready. He's going to pay for what he's done, one way or another." The day of the board meeting arrived, and Vivian and I took our seats at the long mahogany table, our game faces firmly in place. Alex strode in, his confidence barely masking the undercurrent of tension that rippled through the room. As he launched into his polished presentation, projecting financial figures and growth projections onto the screen behind him, I caught Vivian's eye. A slight nod was all it took, and we made our move. "Actually, Alex," Vivian's voice cut through the air like a knife, "I think we should take a closer look at those numbers." Alex faltered, his bravado slipping for just a moment as Vivian began pulling up document after document, laying bare the truth about his misdeeds. The room erupted into chaos, with board members demanding explanations and lawyers scrambling to take notes. Through it all, Alex maintained a veneer of composure, his eyes darting between Vivian and me with a mixture of fury and disbelief. But as the evidence mounted, as the weight of his lies threatened to crush him, the mask finally slipped. "You'll pay for this, Eliza," he snarled, his voice dripping with venom. "Mark my words, you'll regret the day you crossed me." But as I met his gaze, unflinching, I knew that the power had finally shifted. The tangled web of lies he had woven was unraveling before our very eyes, and there was no escape for the monster at its center. The boardroom descended into chaos as the full extent of Alex's deception was laid bare. Lawyers scribbled furiously, shareholders hurled accusations, and through it all, Alex stood frozen, his face contorted in a mask of fury. "How dare you?" he snarled, rounding on Vivian and me. "You have no idea what you've done." Vivian met his gaze, unflinching. "We know exactly what we've done, dear brother. We've exposed you for the liar and fraud that you are." A vein throbbed in Alex's temple as he struggled to maintain his composure. "This is all a misunderstanding," he insisted, his voice strained. "I can explain." "Save it, Alex," one of the board members snapped. "The evidence is overwhelming. Your underhanded dealings, the offshore accounts, the financial manipulations, it's all right here in black and white." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, and I could see the panic flickering in Alex's eyes as his carefully constructed facade crumbled around him. "You're making a grave mistake," he warned, his gaze shifting to me. "You'll regret this, Eliza." I squared my shoulders, refusing to be intimidated by his empty threats. "The only mistake was ever trusting you." As security guards moved in to escort him out, Alex lunged forward, his face twisted into an ugly snarl. "You'll pay for this, you little bitch!" Strong arms restrained him, but not before his fist connected with the side of my face, sending stars bursting across my vision. I stumbled backward, clutching my throbbing cheek, as Vivian rushed to my side. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I nodded, blinking back tears of pain and humiliation. "I'm fine. It's nothing compared to what he deserves." As Alex was dragged from the room, his curses and threats echoing down the hallway, a heavy silence settled over the boardroom. It was finally over. The tangled web of lies that had ensnared us all had been severed, and the monster at its center was exposed for the world to see. In the days and weeks that followed, the fallout from Alex's downfall rippled outward, like shockwaves from a seismic event. Lawsuits were filed, investigations launched, and the once mighty Preston empire teetered on the brink of collapse. Through it all, Vivian remained a steadfast ally, guiding the company through the turbulent waters with a deft hand. Together, we worked tirelessly to salvage what remained, to rebuild the tarnished reputation and restore the trust that Alex had so carelessly squandered. It wasn't easy. There were whispers and pointed stares, accusations and innuendo that threatened to drag us down into the mire of scandal. But we persevered, driven by a shared determination to rise from the ashes and forge a new path forward. As for Alex, his world crumbled around him in spectacular fashion. The once charming, larger-than-life figure was reduced to a mere shadow of his former self, his arrogance replaced by desperation as his allies deserted him one by one. I watched from afar as his lavish lifestyle unraveled, his expensive suits traded for prison jumpsuits, his palatial estate seized by the authorities. It was a fate he had brought upon himself, and yet a part of me still felt a twinge of sadness at the sight of his downfall. But that fleeting moment of pity was quickly overshadowed by a sense of triumph and relief. The nightmare was finally over. The tangled web that had ensnared me was no more, and I was free to reclaim the life that had been stolen from me. As I stood in the doorway of my new apartment, taking in the simple furnishings and the warm sunlight streaming through the windows, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. This was a fresh start, a chance to leave the past behind and forge a new path on my own terms. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while I felt a glimmer of hope. I was no longer a victim, no longer a pawn in someone else's twisted game. I was a survivor, a warrior who had stared down the darkness and emerged victorious. And as I stepped out into the world, head held high, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them with the same unwavering resilience that had carried me through the storm. The headline screamed Alex's downfall, plastered across every newspaper and news channel in the country. Business mogul exposed as fraud, Preston empire crumbles amidst scandal, each headline more sensational than the last. As I flipped through the pages, my eyes scanning the sordid details of his misdeeds, a part of me still couldn't believe how swiftly everything had unraveled. Just weeks ago, Alex had been the picture of success, a titan of industry with the world at his feet. Now he was a disgraced pariah, his name synonymous with deceit and corruption. The real surprise, however, came in the form of the public's reaction. Instead of sympathy or outrage on his behalf, there was a pervasive sense of schadenfreude, a collective glee at witnessing the fall of a man who had lived so ostentatiously, so arrogantly. He had it coming, one commentator declared on a primetime news program. A man like that, with his penchant for excess and his blatant disregard for the rules, was bound to come crashing down eventually. As the days passed, the avalanche of negative publicity only intensified. Former business associates and allies distanced themselves, scrambling to salvage their own reputations. Even Alex's closest confidants turned on him, offering damning testimonies in exchange for leniency from the authorities. Through it all, Vivian remained a steadfast presence by my side, guiding the company through the turbulent waters with a deft hand. Together, we worked tirelessly to reshape the narrative, to restore the trust and credibility that had been shattered by Alex's actions. It wasn't an easy task. There were skeptics at every turn, those who doubted our ability to rise from the ashes of such a colossal scandal. But Vivian was relentless, her determination fueled by a burning desire to reclaim her family's legacy. This company was built on generations of hard work and integrity, she declared in a press conference, her steely gaze fixed on the cameras. We will not allow one man's greed and hubris to tarnish that. As the legal proceedings unfolded, Alex's once formidable empire crumbled around him. Assets were seized, bank accounts frozen, and his lavish lifestyle reduced to a mere memory. Gone were the designer suits and luxury cars, replaced by the drab uniforms and sterile confines of a prison cell. I caught glimpses of him during the highly publicized trial, his once confident demeanor replaced by a haunted, defeated expression. It was a far cry from the charming, charismatic figure who had once swept me off my feet, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity amidst the overwhelming sense of vindication. But that fleeting moment of empathy was quickly overshadowed by the memories of his cruelty, the way he had manipulated and betrayed me without a shred of remorse. This was the fate he had chosen for himself, and he would have to live with the consequences. As the final gavel fell, sealing Alex's fate with a lengthy prison sentence, a palpable sense of relief washed over me. The nightmare was finally over, the tangled web of lies that had ensnared me severed for good. In the aftermath, Vivian stepped forward to assume the mantle of leadership, her steady hand guiding the company through the turbulent waters of rebranding and restructuring. Under her guidance, the once tarnished empire began to regain its footing, slowly but surely clawing its way back to respectability. As for me, I found solace in the simplicity of my new life. Gone were the lavish trappings and the constant scrutiny that had once been my reality. In their place was a newfound sense of freedom, a chance to start anew without the suffocating weight of Alex's lies and manipulations. It wasn't an easy journey, of course. There were moments of doubt and vulnerability, times when the ghosts of the past threatened to drag me back into the darkness. But each time, I drew strength from the knowledge that I had survived, that I had emerged from the fire stronger and more resilient than ever before. As the months passed, the wounds began to heal, and a newfound sense of clarity took root. I was no longer defined by the trauma of my past, no longer a victim of circumstances beyond my control. I was a survivor, a warrior who had stared down the abyss and emerged victorious. And as I stepped out into the world, head held high, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them with the same unwavering determination that had carried me through the storm. The sun filtered through the sheer curtains, bathing my new apartment in a warm, golden glow. It was a far cry from the opulent grandeur of the Preston estate, but as I sipped my morning coffee, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This was my sanctuary, my safe haven from the chaos and turmoil of the past. Gone were the lavish trappings and the suffocating weight of expectation. In their place was a simple, uncluttered existence, a life of my own making, free from the tangled web of lies and manipulation that had once threatened to consume me. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my reverie, and I padded across the hardwood floor to answer it. Vivian stood on the other side, her signature power suit traded for a casual sundress, her face radiant with a genuine smile. "Good morning," she greeted me warmly, enveloping me in a sisterly embrace. "I thought I'd stop by and see how you're settling in." I ushered her inside, marveling at how far our relationship had come. Months ago, we had been adversaries, caught in the crosshairs of Alex's deceit. Now, we were allies, bound by a shared experience that had forged an unbreakable bond of trust and respect. "It's perfect," I assured her, gesturing around the cozy living room. "Simple, but perfect." Vivian nodded, her eyes sweeping over the space with a critical but approving gaze. "I'm glad. You deserve a fresh start, Eliza, a chance to rebuild your life on your own terms." We settled onto the plush sofa, and I couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in Vivian's demeanor. Gone was the sharp, calculating persona she had once worn like armor. In its place was a warmth and vulnerability that I had never seen before. "How are things at the company?" I asked, sipping my coffee. Vivian's smile faltered ever so slightly, a hint of weariness creeping into her expression. "It's been a challenge, to say the least. Rebuilding the brand, restoring trust with our partners and shareholders. It's been an uphill battle." "But you're doing it," I reassured her. "You're turning things around, slowly but surely." A spark of pride flickered in her eyes, and she nodded resolutely. "Yes, we are. It's not easy, but I'm determined to reclaim our family's legacy, to show the world that the Preston name still stands for something." As we lapsed into comfortable silence, I couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey we had both undertaken. From the depths of despair and betrayal, we had risen like phoenixes from the ashes, emerging stronger and more resilient than ever before. The legal battles had been grueling, the emotional toll nearly overwhelming at times. But through it all, we had remained resolute, steadfast in our determination to see justice served and our lives restored. And now, as I looked around my humble abode, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. Gratitude for the strength that had carried me through the darkest of times, and for the unwavering support of the woman who had become more than just an ally. She was family, in the truest sense of the word. "Eliza," Vivian's voice broke the silence, her tone earnest. "I know words can never undo the trauma you endured, but I want you to know how deeply sorry I am for not seeing the truth sooner." I reached out, squeezing her hand reassuringly. "You have nothing to apologize for, Vivian. We were both caught in Alex's web of lies. The important thing is that we found our way out, together." A small smile tugged at the corner of her lips, and she nodded, her eyes shining with a mixture of gratitude and understanding. In that moment, I knew that the scars of the past would never fully fade. The memories of Alex's cruelty, the bitter taste of betrayal, would always linger in the shadows of my mind. But I had emerged from the darkness stronger and more resilient than ever before. As I bid farewell to Vivian and settled back into the comfort of my new home, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of hope for the future. The tangled web that had once threatened to strangle me was severed, the monster at its center vanquished, and I was free to chart my own course. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of excitement rather than trepidation. I was no longer a victim, defined by the trauma of my past. I was a survivor, a warrior who had stared down the abyss and emerged victorious. And as I gazed out at the bustling city skyline, a world of possibilities stretched before me, waiting to be embraced with open arms. The doorbell's shrill ring shattered our Sunday afternoon peace. I froze, wooden spoon suspended over the simmering pot of chili. Marty glanced up from his crossword puzzle, eyebrows raised. "Expecting someone, Clara?" he asked. I shook my head, wiping my hands on my apron. "No, must be a neighbor." As I made my way to the front door, Toby thundered down the stairs. "I'll get it, Mom." "Hold on, sweetie," I called, quickening my pace. Something felt off. We rarely had unexpected visitors, especially on lazy Sundays like this. I reached the door just as Toby's hand touched the knob. "Let me, honey." Toby shrugged and stepped back. I took a deep breath, smoothed my hair, and opened the door. The world tilted on its axis. "Hello, Clara," said a voice I hadn't heard in years. "Long time no see." David, my ex-husband, the man I'd hoped never to lay eyes on again. "What are you doing here?" I managed to choke out, instinctively pushing Toby behind me. David's eyes flickered to our son, then back to me. "We need to talk." "Mom?" Toby's voice wavered. "Who's this?" I swallowed hard. "No one important, sweetie. Go help Marty set the table for dinner." "But..." "Now, Toby." He hesitated, then trudged back to the kitchen. I stepped onto the porch, pulling the door closed behind me. "You have no right to show up here unannounced," I hissed. "What do you want?" David's face hardened. "What's rightfully mine? The necklace, Clara." My grandmother's necklace. My hand flew to my throat where the delicate gold chain rested. "What are you talking about? This was a gift." "A gift you have no right to keep after what you did." Anger flared in my chest. "After what I did? You've got some nerve." "Everything okay out here?" Marty's deep voice cut through the tension. He appeared in the doorway, his solid presence immediately calming me. David's eyes narrowed. "And you must be the new husband. How quaint." Marty stepped forward, extending his hand. "Marty Callahan, and you are?" "David Reeves, Clara's first husband." Marty's hand dropped. "I see. Well, Mr. Reeves, I'm not sure why you're here, but..." "He was just leaving," I interjected. David laughed, a harsh sound that set my teeth on edge. "Oh, I don't think so. Not until I get what I came for." Marty's arm slipped around my waist. "Clara, honey, what's going on?" I took a shaky breath. "Huh? David seems to think he has a claim on my grandmother's necklace." "Your grandmother?" David scoffed. "That necklace belonged to my family for generations. You know that." "It was a gift," I repeated. "From your mother, when we got married. A gift she never should have given you, and one you certainly don't deserve to keep." Marty's grip tightened. "I think you should leave now, Mr. Reeves." David's eyes glittered dangerously. "This isn't over, Clara. That necklace is coming back to my family, one way or another." He turned on his heel and strode down the walkway. I watched him go, my heart pounding. Marty turned me to face him. "Clara, what was that all about?" I shook my head, fighting back tears. "I don't know. I haven't seen or heard from David in years. I don't understand why he's suddenly shown up, demanding the necklace." "Mom?" Toby's voice drifted from inside. "Is everything okay?" I plastered on a smile and called back, "Everything's fine, sweetie. We'll be right in." Marty cupped my face in his hands. "We'll figure this out, Clara. I promise." I nodded, trying to believe him. But as we walked back into the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that our peaceful life was about to be turned upside down, and all because of a necklace I'd almost forgotten I owned. I couldn't sleep that night. David's sudden appearance had unleashed a flood of memories I'd spent years trying to forget. As I tossed and turned, Marty's steady breathing beside me, I found myself transported back to a time I'd rather leave buried. Clara, Marty's sleepy voice broke through my reverie. You're thinking so loud I can practically hear it. I sighed, turning to face him. I'm sorry, it's just seeing David again. It's brought everything back. Marty propped himself up on one elbow, his eyes soft with concern. Talk to me, honey. What's really going on? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It's not just about the necklace. It's everything. And so, in the darkness of our bedroom, I began to unravel the tangled web of my past with David. We were so young when we got married, I started. So full of hope and dreams, but then... The fertility issues, Marty finished softly. I nodded, feeling the old ache resurface. Month after month, year after year. The disappointments, the treatments, the fights. It was killing us, Marty, killing me. And David, how did he handle it? I laughed bitterly. Oh, he handled it all right, by sleeping with his secretary. Marty's sharp intake of breath was audible in the quiet room. Clara, I had no idea. I never told anyone the whole story, I admitted. It was too painful. But that's not even the worst part. I sat up, needing to move. Marty followed suit, taking my hand in his. What happened? He asked gently. I found out I was pregnant, I whispered. The day after I caught him with her. Can you believe it? After all those years of trying, it finally happened. And he had the audacity to question if it was his. Marty's grip on my hand tightened. That bastard, he muttered. I left him that day, I continued. Packed my bags and walked out. His mother, she gave me the necklace, said I deserved something good from that family. And now he wants it back, Marty mused. But why now? After all these years? Before I could respond, a muffled thud from downstairs made us both freeze. Did you hear that? I whispered. Marty nodded, already sliding out of bed. Stay here, he instructed, reaching for the baseball bat we kept in the closet. My heart pounding, I listened as Marty crept down the stairs. The seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, suddenly, a crash, followed by raised voices. Unable to stay put any longer, I rushed downstairs, nearly colliding with Toby in the hallway. Mom, what's going on? He asked, eyes wide with fear. Stay behind me, I ordered, pushing him back as we descended the stairs. The scene in our living room made my blood run cold. Marty stood, bat raised, facing off against David, who was clutching something in his hand. David, I exclaimed, what the hell are you doing in our house? He turned to me, his eyes wild. I told you I'd get what's mine, Clara, one way or another. It was then I realized what he was holding, my jewelry box. How dare you break into our home, Marty growled, taking a step forward. David laughed, a manic edge to his voice. Your home? This should have been my family, my son, my life. Dad? Toby's small voice came from behind me. You're my dad? The room fell silent. David's eyes locked onto Toby, a mix of emotions flashing across his face. Toby, go back upstairs, I said firmly, not taking my eyes off David. But Mom, now, Toby! As Toby's footsteps retreated, David's gaze returned to me. You kept him from me all these years, Clara, and now you're going to pay. He reached into his pocket, pulling out something that glinted in the dim light. My heart stopped. A gun. The world seemed to slow down as I stared at the gun in David's trembling hand. Marty stepped in front of me, his voice steady despite the tension in his shoulders. Put the gun down, David. You don't want to do this. David's laugh was hollow. You don't know what I want. You have no idea what it's like to lose everything. I found my voice, anger overriding fear. You lost nothing, David. You threw it all away. His eyes, wild with desperation, locked onto mine. I made a mistake, Clara. One stupid mistake, and you took my son away from me. You took yourself away, I shot back. You questioned if he was even yours. The gun wavered in David's hand. I was scared, confused, but I'm here now. I want to make things right. Marty's calm voice cut through the tension. This isn't the way, David. Think about Toby. What would he want? At the mention of Toby's name, something in David's eyes shifted. The gun lowered slightly, and I saw a flicker of the man I once loved. I just want to know my son, he whispered. In that moment, I realized how much Marty had changed my life. His unwavering support, his love for Toby, his ability to bring calm to chaos, it all came rushing to the forefront of my mind. I thought back to the day I met Marty, barely 2 months after leaving David. I was a mess, trying to navigate single motherhood and a high-risk pregnancy. Marty, a friend of a friend, had offered to help me move into my new apartment. I don't need charity, I had snapped at him. His response was a gentle smile. It's not charity, Clara. It's what decent people do for each other. That day, as he patiently assembled furniture and hung curtains, never pushing for more than I was willing to give, I felt the first stirrings of hope in months. Over the next year, as I adjusted to life with Toby, Marty became a constant presence. He was there for Toby's first steps, his first words. He was there when I cried over lost dreams and celebrated new beginnings. When Toby was 2, Marty proposed. I hesitated, scarred by my past. I'm not asking to replace anyone, he had said. I'm asking to build something new together. You, me, and Toby. Now, facing down my past in the form of an armed and desperate David, I knew with absolute certainty that Marty was the best decision I had ever made. I stepped out from behind Marty, ignoring his attempt to pull me back. David, I said softly, put the gun down, please, for Toby's sake. His hand shook. I just want a chance. And you'll get one, I promised, though the words tasted bitter. But not like this. Never like this. Slowly, agonizingly, David lowered the gun. As soon as it left his hand, Marty was there, kicking it away and restraining David. I've called the police, Toby's voice came from the stairs. We all turned to see him, phone in hand, tears streaming down his face. Oh, sweetheart, I breathed, rushing to him. As sirens wailed in the distance, I held my son close, Marty's strong presence at our backs. David sagged in defeat, the fight gone out of him. In the chaos of the arriving police and the barrage of questions that followed, one thought kept circling in my mind. How could I ever explain this to Toby? How could I help him understand the complexities of adult relationships, the mistakes we make, and the consequences that follow? As the police led David away, Toby's small voice cut through the noise. Mom, is he really my dad? I looked at Marty, seeing the love and concern in his eyes, then back at Toby. Biologically, yes, but being a dad is about so much more than that. It's about love, support, and being there no matter what. Toby nodded slowly, his gaze drifting to Marty. Like Marty? Yes, sweetheart, I said, feeling a lump form in my throat. Exactly like Marty. The days following David's arrest were a blur of police statements, hushed conversations, and Toby's endless questions. Through it all, Marty remained my rock, his steady presence a balm to my frayed nerves. But as the dust began to settle, a new worry took root. How would Marty's parents react to this mess? I'd always felt a mix of gratitude and unworthiness when it came to George and Helen Callahan. They'd welcomed Toby and me into their family with open arms, never once making us feel like outsiders. Their acceptance was a stark contrast to the cold shoulder my own parents had given me after my divorce. We should tell them what happened, Marty said one evening, sensing my unease. They'll understand, Clara. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. Would they still see me as worthy of their son after learning about the chaos I'd brought into his life? The drive to the Callahans' sprawling Victorian home the next day felt like a march to the gallows. Toby, blissfully unaware of my inner turmoil, chattered excitedly about showing his grandpa his new remote-controlled car. Helen greeted us at the door, her warm smile faltering as she took in our somber expressions. What's wrong, dears? George appeared behind her, his bushy eyebrows furrowed with concern. Toby, why don't you go set up your car in the backyard? Marty suggested gently. As soon as Toby was out of earshot, we spilled the whole sordid tale. I watched their faces carefully as we recounted David's reappearance, his accusations, and the terrifying night he broke in. Helen's hand flew to her mouth in shock, while George's jaw clenched tighter with each word. When we finished, silence hung heavy in the air. I braced myself for their judgment, for the disappointment I was sure would follow. Instead, Helen reached out and took my hand. Oh, Clara, she said, her voice thick with emotion. What a terrible ordeal you've been through. George cleared his throat. That man had no right to threaten you or our grandson, he said gruffly. You did the right thing, calling the police. I blinked back tears, overwhelmed by their unwavering support. You're not ashamed to have me in your family? Ashamed? Helen exclaimed. Darling, we couldn't be prouder of how you've handled this situation. You've shown incredible strength and grace. George nodded in agreement. You're a Callahan now, Clara, and Callahans stick together. Their words washed over me like a healing balm, soothing wounds I didn't even know I had. For the first time since David's reappearance, I felt truly safe. But our moment of peace was shattered by the shrill ring of Marty's phone. His face darkened as he listened to the caller. "What is it?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. Marty's voice was tight as he replied, "That was my contact at the police station. David's been released on bail." The room spun around me. "How?" I gasped. "He broke into our home. He had a gun." "Apparently he's got some powerful friends," Marty said grimly. "They're claiming it was all a misunderstanding." George stood up, his face set with determination. "This is unacceptable. I won't have my family threatened." "Dad," Marty began, but George cut him off. "No, son, it's time I made some calls. Your Uncle Richard owes me a favor, and he's got connections that could make life very difficult for this David character." I felt a flicker of hope, quickly followed by a wave of guilt. "I don't want to cause any trouble," I said weakly. Helen squeezed my hand. "You're not causing anything, dear. We protect our own." As George disappeared into his study, phone in hand, I was struck by a realization. This was what true family looked like. Not the conditional love of my parents or the toxic possessiveness of David, but unconditional support and protection. Marty wrapped an arm around me. "What do you want to do, Clara?" I took a deep breath, drawing strength from the love surrounding me. "I want to fight," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "I want to end this once and for all." Little did I know, my decision would set in motion a chain of events that would change all our lives forever. The crisp envelope landed on our kitchen table with a soft thud, but it might as well have been a bomb. I stared at David's name in the return address, my hands shaking as I reached for it. "You don't have to open it," Marty said softly, his hand on my shoulder. I shook my head. "No, I need to know what he's up to." With trembling fingers, I tore open the envelope. As I read the contents, my blood ran cold. "He's suing us," I whispered, "for the necklace and for custody of Toby." Marty's grip on my shoulder tightened. "He can't do that. He has no rights." "Apparently he thinks he does," I said, scanning the legal jargon. "He's claiming I denied him his parental rights all these years." Marty's face darkened. "This is ridiculous. After what he did breaking in here?" "We'll fight this, Clara, every step of the way." I nodded, but fear clawed at my insides. What if David won? What if he took Toby away from me? The next few days were a whirlwind of lawyer consultations and sleepless nights. Toby sensed the tension, becoming clingy and irritable. I felt like I was failing him all over again. It was during one particularly trying afternoon that the doorbell rang. I opened it to find David standing there, a smug smile on his face. "Hello, Clara," he said, as if he hadn't threatened us with a gun just weeks ago. "I think it's time we talked." Before I could slam the door in his face, Marty appeared behind me. "You're not welcome here," he said, his voice low and dangerous. David's smile didn't falter. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want what's mine." "Nothing here is yours," I spat. "Oh, but it is," David replied. "That necklace belongs to my family. And Toby, he's my son. It's time I took my rightful place in his life." Marty stepped forward, his presence imposing. "You lost any right to call yourself Toby's father the moment you questioned his paternity. Now I suggest you leave before I call the police. Again." David's eyes narrowed. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Playing happy families with my wife and my child. But I've got news for you, Marty. I've got friends in high places. One word from me, and your perfect little life comes crashing down." I felt Marty tense beside me, but his voice remained steady. "Is that so?" "Well, let me tell you something, David. You're not the only one with connections. You really want to play this game? Because I can guarantee you won't like how it ends." For a moment, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in David's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by anger. "This isn't over," he snarled, turning to leave. "You'll be hearing from my lawyers." As we watched him drive away, I turned to Marty. "What did you mean about connections?" Marty sighed. "I didn't want to worry you, but I've been doing some digging. David's not as squeaky clean as he'd like everyone to believe. I've got evidence of some questionable business practices." My eyes widened. "You mean?" "I mean, if he wants to play dirty, we've got ammunition," Marty said grimly. "But Clara, using this information, it could get ugly, really ugly." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the decision before me. On one hand, exposing David could end this nightmare once and for all. On the other, it could drag us all through the mud, affecting Toby in ways I couldn't even imagine. "What should we do?" I whispered. Marty pulled me close. That's up to you, love. I'll support whatever you decide. But remember, we're not just fighting for the necklace anymore. We're fighting for our family. I nodded, my mind racing. As much as I wanted this to be over, I knew I had to think of Toby first. But how far was I willing to go to protect him? And at what cost? Taking a deep breath, I looked up at Marty. I think it's time we fought fire with fire. For Toby's sake. Little did I know, my decision would set in motion a chain of events that would change all our lives forever. The day after our confrontation with David, Marty's phone rang. His face tightened as he listened, and I felt my stomach drop. That was Uncle Richard, he said, hanging up. He wants to meet us. Now. Uncle Richard was a name I'd heard whispered with a mix of awe and fear. A powerful attorney with connections in every corner of the city, he was the Callahan family's secret weapon. An hour later, we sat in his opulent office, the city sprawling beneath us through floor-to-ceiling windows. Richard Callahan was every bit as imposing as I'd imagined, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with an air of authority that filled the room. So, he said, leaning back in his leather chair, David Reeves is causing trouble. I nodded, my throat dry. He's suing for custody of our son and demanding the return of a family heirloom. Richard's eyes narrowed. And you're sure you want to fight this? Yes, I said firmly, gripping Marty's hand. We can't let him win. A slow smile spread across Richard's face. Good, because I've done some digging and what I've found, well, let's just say Mr. Reeves isn't as squeaky clean as he'd like people to believe. He slid a file across the desk. As Marty and I pored over its contents, my eyes widened in shock. Fraudulent business deals, offshore accounts, even evidence of bribery, David's carefully constructed facade was nothing but a house of cards. With this information, Richard continued, we can not only crush his lawsuit, but potentially ruin him completely. The question is, are you prepared for the fallout? I hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. What kind of fallout? This will be messy, Richard warned. Once we start, there's no going back. David will be destroyed professionally and personally. It could affect Toby, knowing what his biological father has done. I closed my eyes, torn between the desire for justice and the need to protect my son. But then I remembered David's smug face, his threats, the terror of that night he broke into our home. My resolve hardened. Do it, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Richard nodded, reaching for his phone. I'll set things in motion immediately. The next few days were a whirlwind. News of David's misdeeds spread like wildfire through the business community. His company's stock plummeted, partners distanced themselves, and whispers of a federal investigation filled the air. I watched it all unfold with a mix of satisfaction and guilt. But nothing prepared me for the moment Toby came home from school, tears in his eyes. Is it true? He asked, his voice small. Is Dad really a bad guy? My heart shattered. I pulled him close, struggling to find the right words. Your father? He's made some mistakes, honey, but that doesn't change who you are. As I held my sobbing son, I wondered if we'd made the right choice. Had our desire for justice blinded us to the cost? But there was no time to dwell on regrets. That evening, as we sat down to dinner, a frantic pounding on our front door made us all jump. I opened it to find David, disheveled and wild-eyed. The man who had once exuded confidence and control now looked broken. What have you done? He hissed, pushing past me into the house. You've ruined everything. Marty was there in an instant, placing himself between David and me. You need to leave now. But David was beyond reason. He lunged forward, his hands reaching for my throat. You bitch! You've destroyed my life! As Marty grappled with David, I heard Toby's terrified scream from the kitchen. In that moment, watching my son witness this violence, something inside me snapped. I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy vase, and swung it with all my might. It connected with David's head with a sickening thud, and he crumpled to the floor. As sirens wailed in the distance and Toby sobbed in my arms, I stared at David's unconscious form. What had we become, and how could we ever come back from this? The days following David's attack blurred together in a haze of police statements, hushed conversations, and Toby's nightmares. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, one wrong move away from plummeting into an abyss of guilt and regret. It was a crisp autumn morning when the call came. David wanted to meet. Alone. Absolutely not, Marty insisted, his face etched with worry. It's too dangerous. But I knew this had to end. For all of us. I need to do this, Marty. For Toby? For us. The cafe we agreed to meet at was nearly empty. I spotted David immediately, hunched over a coffee cup, a shadow of his former self. As I approached, he looked up, his eyes hollow and desperate. "Clara," he croaked, "thank you for coming." I sat across from him, my heart pounding. "What do you want, David?" He ran a trembling hand through his unkempt hair. "I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, my future. I need your help." I stared at him, incredulous. "My help? After everything you've done?" "Please," he begged, reaching for my hand. I pulled away instinctively. "If you just tell them it was all a misunderstanding, that you exaggerated." "Exaggerated?" My voice rose, drawing glances from nearby tables. "Like, you broke into our home, you threatened us with a gun, you tried to take our son away." David's face crumpled. I was desperate. I just wanted to be part of Toby's life, to have something of my old life back. For a moment I felt a flicker of pity. But then I remembered Toby's tears, the fear in his eyes. "You lost that right long ago, David, when you questioned if he was even yours." "I know," he whispered, "and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But please, Clara, I'm begging you, help me salvage something. Anything." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I had to say. "No, David, I won't help you. This ends now. You need to leave us alone, for good." His eyes hardened, a glimpse of the old David shining through. "You can't do this to me. You'll what?" I interrupted, my voice steady. "There's nothing left for you to threaten us with. It's over." I stood to leave, but David grabbed my wrist. "The necklace. At least give me that. It's all I have left of my family." I hesitated, my hand instinctively going to my throat where the necklace rested. For a moment, I considered it. Would giving him this small piece of his past finally bring us peace? But then I remembered the day David's mother had given it to me. "You're family now," she had said. "This belongs to you." I gently pried David's fingers from my wrist. "No, David, the necklace is mine, just like this life is mine, the life I've built with Marty and Toby, a life you have no place in anymore." As I turned to walk away, David called out, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry, Clara, for everything. I hope you can forgive me someday." I paused at the door, looking back at the broken man who had once been my husband. "Goodbye, David," I said softly. "I hope you find peace." Stepping out into the sunlight, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in months, I could breathe freely. But as I walked home, a new worry gnawed at me. How would I explain this to Toby? How could I help him understand the complexities of forgiveness and closure? As I approached our house, I saw Toby and Marty in the front yard, laughing as they raked leaves. The sight of them, so carefree and happy, brought tears to my eyes. I realized then that while the past would always be a part of us, it didn't have to define our future. Taking a deep breath, I walked towards my family, ready to face whatever came next, together. The weeks following my confrontation with David were filled with a strange mix of relief and unease. Each day that passed without incident felt like a small victory, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the other shoe was about to drop. It was a quiet Sunday morning when it finally did. I was sipping coffee, scrolling through my emails, when I saw it. Subject line, "One last plea." From David. My finger hovered over the delete button, but curiosity won out. I opened it, bracing myself for more manipulation, more threats. Instead, I found something unexpected. "Clara," it began, "I know I have no right to contact you, but I needed to say this. I'm leaving town, for good. I've realized that my presence here is toxic, not just for you and Toby, but for myself. I'm sorry for all the pain I've caused. I hope that one day, Toby might be willing to know me, but I understand if that never happens. The necklace is yours, as it should be. Take care of our son. Goodbye." I read it 3 times, tears blurring my vision. It felt like the final chapter of a book I'd been trying to close for years. "Clara?" Marty's voice startled me. "What's wrong?" I handed him my phone, watching his face as he read. When he finished, he looked at me, concern etched in his features. "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath, surprised to find that I was. "Yes," I said, realizing it was true. "I think I finally am." Just then, Toby bounded into the kitchen, full of 10-year-old energy. "Mom, Dad, can we go to the park today?" Marty and I exchanged glances. "Of course, buddy," Marty said. "Go get ready." As Toby raced upstairs, I turned to Marty. "I think it's time we talk to him. About everything." Marty nodded, pulling me into a hug. "Together," he said. That afternoon, sitting on a park bench while Toby played nearby, we told him the whole story. About David, about our past, about the recent turmoil. Toby listened with a maturity that both broke my heart and filled me with pride. When we finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "So David is my real dad?" I felt Marty tense beside me, but before I could respond, Toby continued, "But Marty is my dad, right? The one who's always been there?" Tears sprang to my eyes as I pulled Toby close. "Yes, sweetheart, Marty is your dad in all the ways that truly matter." Toby nodded, seeming satisfied. "Okay, can I go play now?" As we watched him run off, Marty took my hand. "He's an amazing kid, Clara. We're lucky." I leaned into him, feeling a peace I hadn't known in months. "We are, and I'm lucky to have you. Through all of this, you've been my rock." Marty kissed the top of my head. "We're a team, remember? For better or worse." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, I found myself fingering the necklace. For so long it had felt like a burden, a reminder of past pain, but now I saw it differently. It was a symbol of resilience, of family, of love that endures. I unclasped it, holding it out to Marty. "I want you to have this," I said. His eyes widened. "Clara, no, it's yours." I shook my head, smiling. "It's ours, our families, and one day it'll be Toby's, a reminder of where he came from and the love that brought him here." Marty's eyes glistened as he took the necklace, carefully placing it in his pocket. "I love you, Clara, more than I can say." "I love you too," I whispered, watching as Toby ran towards us, laughing and carefree. In that moment, I knew that whatever challenges life might bring, we would face them together. Our little family, bound not by blood or gold, but by something far stronger, love, trust, and the choice to stand by each other, come what may. As Toby reached us, throwing his arms around us both, I felt a sense of completion. The storm had passed, and we had emerged stronger, more united than ever. This, I realized, was our happily ever after. Not perfect, not without its scars, but real and beautiful in its imperfection. And I wouldn't have it any other way.